Rising, everyone. Grand Rising. Hoping everyone's doing well this Friday Rising. How is everybody doing? Lady Free, Copper Indio, and Bones McCoy. What's going on with y'all?
Grand Rising, everyone. Doing well. Happy to be here, as always.
Grand Rising, peace, everyone.
Yeah, peace and Grand Rising. All right.
All right. If all those in the chat within the sound of my voice, if you can go ahead and throw up some ones. Put some ones in the chat so we can know that y'all can hear us well. That'd be cool and much appreciated.
Throwing up ones on a Friday Rising.
Yep.
That's how we coming out the gate. Throwing up ones.
Throwing up ones. That's right. Because after we get finished with the improved order of Red Men, we're gonna talk about these nursery rhymes.
All right. Sounds good.
So, what?
Why I see sevens in the chat? Those are not ones, David.
They're ones with hooks on them, so we're gonna go with that. or arrow tips. How about that?
All right, that works.
Grand Rising,
Some
Antonio.
lazy ones on Friday.
He said, spell that. Grand Rising, Antonio. Grand Rising, I am Flying Squirrel. We see that you was first in the building. Grand Rising, that boy Wig. Grand Rising, Oak Cliff. Grand Rising, Macadam 1. Let's see if there's any. Grand Rising, Mike Easton. Let's see who else we got. Grand Rising of Darian Woods. Grand Rising, Golden Moon. Yeah, I think we covered every. Oh, Grand Rising, Copper Color Queen. Grand Rising to all those that are listening and just gathering this information. Hopefully you're able to use it to benefit your community. Grand Rising to the new subscribers that we have. We look forward to providing information that's going to be beneficial to you, and hope you have a better understanding of who we are and what we do by the time we get done. David Corey says, after we get through this, we have who you say spell that. Why did I read that? Anyway, it's Friday and David Corey on one. That's we're gonna leave it at that.
Grand Rising, David. I always love the energy David brings to the chat. Always.
Yeah. So we're gonna do this public service announcement and get this road on the show. And before we do the public service announcement, is there anything that anybody wants to say about what we came across yesterday? Y'all want to save it to afterwards?
I don't have anything. I'm definitely saving till after. Just car hacks. Yeah. Yo.
All right, so let's not keep the people waiting. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the public service announcement. This episode of Grand Rising Show, Racist Nursery Rhymes. I probably spelled racist wrong, but that's okay. Follow the thought. Hugh wrote these. Is brought to you by Attackness Assembly, where the real work gets done. Attackness Assembly is a gathering of the minds that do the work. If you don't do any work, nothing gets done, right? So who are the Attackness Assembly? We are a non-profit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous Americans' voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, or some people may call it the family tree, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineage and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, and it's essential to our success and serves as the lens through which we evaluate every business decision. And those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right, respect, treating others the way you want to be treated, responsibility, embracing opportunities to contribute, and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. And our bylaws, our core values and our mission statement can be found on our website at theattackersassembly.com. And for those of you who are just now tuning in for the first time and are listening to this, one thing we want to get across is that Attackers Assembly is here to help you do your genealogy. That's our most important mission. Everything that we do is dedicated towards that. So all the information that we provide, if you're doing your genealogy, hopefully this information will help unlock some of the roadblocks or unblock some of the roadblocks that you're coming across, whether it be because of time, dates, location, or what have you. That's our number one goal. Some of the other goals that we have are to, if you choose, to help you become, financially independent and put yourself in a situation to where you can generate income without having to depend on, if you so choose, not having a job or government assistance. Because we know that people that can take care of themselves will be able to take care of others. And if you choose to use that information to not only help yourself, your community, particularly your tribe, we'll do everything in our power with the resources that we have without charging you to help and facilitate in that endeavor. So that's what we're here for, and we're not here to get in your personal business. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what Attackers Assembly is about and what we're here for. So while I set up the work site, I'm going to turn it over to the panel for them to share their views and thoughts while I get everything ready. Take it away, ladies, gentlemen.
No problem. Ain't missed nothing. Caught everything. And again, to remind everybody, don't forget to that the resources that's on the website, go ahead and use them. If we don't use them, then they do no one any good. Also, like we've been saying this week, you can check out American Indian Network Television, which is also on the website.
All right, so it's time to get these warnings out the way so people know exactly where we at and what we're about and what we are doing. So let me turn the volumes up so everybody can hear.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
Uh-oh. Wrong one. And let y'all know we all at the construction site. It is. Grand Rising Alpha Jones. Hopefully all is well. Grand Rising Big Hawk. Alright, y'all. It's about that time. So we're going to finish up with the improved order of the Redmen, and then we're going to go right into the Nursery Rymes. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat again, and we're going to go in, because I want to go ahead and make sure we finish that up before we move forward. Does anybody have anything to say? Yeah, take two. Does anybody have anything they want to say in regards to what we went over yesterday and what we've been talking about this rising? Or we just want to go into it?
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is going to be where we put these breadcrumbs together and we find the loaf of bread that they all came from. And not only that, but also what these crumbs are building up to. And we almost certainly won't be able to get to all of that today, but you'll have an idea. By the end of this show, you'll have an idea of where this is all going and how we got to this point that we're in today. That's all I had to add.
That is well stated, Cop. I really appreciate that because it basically puts everything in order and context. And as everyone knows that are part of the chat. Yes, family, I know I'm killing the keys. And as well as everybody knows as part of the chat, and for those of you who are new that may not know, our goal is to always try to link these stories together and let everyone know exactly where our people were doing this and how it affected our people. And to always make sure the timelines are covered. Not just a particular timeline, but we try to cover all the timelines because the way that we were taught history, they try to break up the timelines as if these things didn't happen simultaneously. So, hopefully that helps explain why we do what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat. And we're finishing up where we left off yesterday with the improved order of Red Man. So, we stopped off at, let me see. Oh, we stopped off at organization. So, the order has 3-tier structure. Local units called tribes and are presided over by Sachem and a board of directors. Local meeting sites are called wigwams. So we can see here already that they're using terms, Indian terms, for their organization. They are really trying to make an effort to basically replace the Indians and make the Indian culture their culture, and then propagate anything that they feel, meaning the order, that is Native American or Indian, and make it seem that it comes from them. So make it seem as though they're the originators. So I'm going to continue to read. It says the national level, the state level is called reservation and governed by a great Sachem and great council or board of chiefs. The national level is the Great Council of the United States. The Great Council consists of the Great Ikahoni, President, and the Board of Great Chiefs, which includes the Great Senior Sagamore, spelled Sagamore, which is called the First Vice President, Great Junior Sagamore, Great Chief of Records Secretary, Great Keeper of the Wampum, and the Prophet. The Prophet is the past president. The headquarters of the order has been in Waco, Texas since at least 1979. They maintain an official museum and library in Waco. Stop. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women of all ages, this order is still active. They have a website. Just wanted to put that out there for you. Auxiliaries and side degrees. And for those of you who are familiar with secret societies or organizations that are private, let's call them POs, private organizations. We'll let everybody else use that term, secret societies. Let's call these private organizations. These private organizations have side degrees of the order, and it was founded in 1890 in the National Haymakers Association. There was also once a uniform division called the Knights of Tammany. We talked about them yesterday, as well as a group called the Chieftains League, which consisted of members who had been exalted to the chief degree, also below, and were in good standing within their respective tribes. So if you look at the Chieftains League, and it consisted of members that had been exalted to chief degree, it seems like they're paralleling. Did I say that right? They are paralleling the Masonic order and how they go from the 32nd degree Masons to your, what is that? I just drew a blank. It'll come to me in a second. To a higher order, to a higher degree, where you start to get into the York and Scottish rites. So they're just taking what they learned or what they knew about these private orders, and they've adopted these Indian practices with it. They even have a female order or auxiliary. It is called the degree of Pocahontas and dates to the 1880s. And the degrees of Anona, a junior order of the degrees of Pocahontas, which was formed in 1952. Here's a question I have. And maybe somebody that may knows a little bit more about this, if you're able to talk about this, Copper, maybe you can help me with this. Grand Rising, Carrie Bay. Good to see you, bro. Copper, maybe you can answer this question. Maybe somebody in the chat can answer. Somebody that's listening but hasn't had an opportunity to speak because maybe it wasn't, they haven't feel they could contribute. But maybe you can answer this question. If all of these tribes are nonprofits, right, and their names should be protected, how is it that a private order can use the name Pocahontas as part of one of their degrees, and I have not heard of an outcry or of an issue from the Powhatan tribe? You would think the Indians would be in an outrage, or the Native Americans would be in outrage, because they're using, or they're basically culture appropriating or culture misappropriating these individuals.
Right. This is appropriation.
Pocahontas real?
So, say that again, bro.
Was Pocahontas real?
So let's look at that. Let's look at what that is and what that means, because you have a lot of people claiming ties to these individuals, but just like Christopher Columbus, just like a lot of these other figures in history, who are these people? Mm-hmm. Are these people actually people, or are they an idea? Are they groups of people? We need to understand this. We need to figure this out first, because again, if I was to use the name of a great chief for my organization and assume the title of said chief, like we talked about yesterday, there would be a problem. People would actually be offended. Think about this. Look at Pharrell was on a magazine cover, okay, with the war bonnet on, and people went off on him.
They were ballistic. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yet somehow these people are able to claim ties and ancestry and proximity to these great figures, and it goes quiet.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that right? We understand that these are, as TMH mentioned, private organizations. Okay, but it's not that people don't know they exist. They may not know the secrets of what they have and what they hold, but they know that they exist, and they know this information wasn't interrogated out of somebody. This information was found readily. So why is there no outcry about this?
And the reason why I say that is because for those of you who are aware, and it'll help you as an individual. Go ahead, Copper.
No, I was just gonna say part of why I returned to the original question was to answer it twofold. Either A, people have co-signed this, know about it, and are okay with it, or B, they've been told not to say anything about it because there's something that's missing. Like Bones asked, is this individual even real?
And the reason why I was saying that it's important and it's imperative, if this is your namesake and this is your tribe, anybody that knows anything about Google and protecting your brand, you can subscribe to I am drawing a blank today. Google has a website, for lack of a better term, that you can go to, and it will send you news clippings, not news clippings, but links. And anytime something, it's like, say, if you want to do some research on a certain name or a certain situation, you can actually have Google go out and look for all of the articles, all of the links that have said name in it. Like for instance,
Yeah, Google alerts.
yeah, thank you, Google Alerts. I
Right.
do Google Alerts on TMA's Global to make sure that nothing negative is being said about my name and my company. In the event that something is, I can address it. So I get I get emails throughout the day where it goes out. Google goes out and pings that name, the name of my company. So if I can do that, then you know goodness well the tribes, the chiefs, they could do that and know that someone's talking bad about them or using their name when they shouldn't be without their permission. So that was the reason why I asked that question. So yeah, it's called Google Alerts. Thanks, Kim. So right quick, I want to gonna go over and finish the auxiliary side degrees, and we're gonna touch on that a little bit more. Um, it says in 1952, the order created the degree of Hiawatha as a youth auxiliary for males 8 and up. Most of the members of the degree of Hiawatha are concentrated in New England. In 1979, there were less than 5,000 members in approximately 125 councils. The Order Female Auxiliary is a degree of Pocahontas and dates to the 1880s. The degree of Anona, a junior order of the degree of Pocahontas, was formed in 1952. So let's read about these degrees. Let's look at the degree of Pocahontas and see what they talk about. So the degree of Pocahontas. The degree of Pocahontas are a female auxiliary of the Improved Order of Red Men, an American fraternal order, despite using names based on common non-native ideas about Native Americans. And then this highlighted says stereotypes of indigenous peoples of Canada and the United States. It was formed solely by and for white women. Members is now open to patriotic American women of every race. Membership is now open to patriotic women of every race. So at one particular time they were exclusive, now they're inclusive. Okay. The history. The degree was founded in Elmira, New York. The idea of creating a female degree was first broached in the early 1850s. However, it wasn't until the Improved Order of Red Men Great Council of 1885 that degree was approved. The first local chapter was the Winona Council Number 1 of Philadelphia, whose council fire was lighted on the 28th sleep of cold moon. They got their own calendar. GSD 396, February 28, 1887. At the 828 Red Men's Wigwam, Race Street, in that city. Hold on.
1887?
Yes, February 28th, 1887. The council fire was lighted on the 28th sleep of cold moon, GSD 396, and the location was Race Street in the city.
Stop it. Stop it. Are you serious?
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. Wow.
So that's the degree of Pocahontas. So let's look at the degree of Hiawatha, which is one of my great uncle's names on my mom's side. Hiawatha in Onondaga, born 1855. That's his name. That's not the tribe. Come on, y'all. Work with it, brother. I wonder if they give you that information. See if I can find it. See if I can find it. I'm not able to pull it up. I'll go back and look for it later. But just know that these are auxiliary degrees of the improved order of the red men. So let me go back under organization auxiliary degrees. So now let's look at the membership. Antonio, leave that keyboard alone. It's not bothering you. Membership. The improved order of the red men grew in membership in the late 19th century. It reached 519,942 members in 46 states. Wait, this is in 46 states? 46 states in 1921?
That's the whole. You might as well say that's all of America. Well, the U.S. That's all of the U.S.
But it had declined to 31,789 in 32 states in 1978, and to 15,251 by 2011. Until 1974, the order was open to whites only. That year, the 106th Great Council of the United States eliminated the all-white clause in what was called a turning point for the order.
There was no turning point. They just did all that dirt and had to hide it. Let me calm down.
So let's look at the rituals, because all private organizations have rituals. The order itself claims direct descent from the Sons of Liberty, noting that the Sons participated in the Boston Tea Party dress as their idea of Indians. Thus, they continue to dress as Indians and use American Indian terminology. The group's ritual terminology is derived from language they believe is used by American Indians. Stop.
Who believed it? This is mess I was saying. Running around here claiming something that's not even real.
Okay. It says the group's ritual terminology is derived from language they believe is used by American Indians. So they're creating stereotypes and propagating them. And they have this whole private organization that deals with this. It's as though it is also shows the influence of Freemasonry. Outsiders are called palefaces. To open a meeting is called kindling the fire. Officers' installations are called raising up chiefs, and voting is called twigging. The Masonic influence is seen in the three basic degrees: adoption, warrior, and chief. Hold on.
Ask yourself, why was adoption such an important part of that?
What are you adopting? The Masonic influence is seen in the three basic degrees: adoption, warrior, and chief. There's also a fourth degree, beneficiary for insurance. So, hold on. So for anybody that tries to insinuate or intimate that these Europeans come over here and they brought their stuff with them, you can clearly look at this and tell they have taken the way that our tribes were organized, and they're using these organizations and some of these terminologies based off of what they thought we use in their rituals. So they are clearly stealing, or as we used to say back in the 80s, bite or copy.
Culture misappropriation.
So whenever somebody tries to tell you that the majority of the systems that these Europeans are using are theirs, meaning it comes from Europe and they brought it over here, or it comes from France and they brought it over here, please make them prove it. Because the Europeans didn't have councils like we have councils. They didn't have chiefs like we had chiefs. So I just wanted to put that out there. So they even go on to talk about the calendar system that these individuals have. It says originally the society used the Hebrew Anno Mundi system for the calendar year numbering when dating their documents rather than common era. So let's look at this Hebrew Anno Mundi. What is that?
Hold on, let me exchange my hard hat right now, because this one's gonna crack.
I'm following suit. Oh, Cliff said, "Where's Waldo? Is he dressed like an Indian?"
Man, you beat me to it. I was just about to say that.
That's
why
the
he been hiding
statement of
out.
the week.
Waldo dressed like one of us standing right next to us. While everybody looking for him every place else. What they tell you? If you don't want to find nobody, hide in the hood.
And to say that, you can also look like one of us and hide in a white sheet, aka a hood. Anyway, moving on.
Bingo.
So the Anno Mundi, abbreviated as AM or year after creation, is a calendar era based on the biblical accounts of the creation of the world and subsequent history. Two such calendar eras have seen notable use historically. The Byzantine calendar was used in the Byzantine Empire and many Christian Orthodox countries and Eastern Orthodox churches, and was used based on the Septuagint text of the Bible. The calendar is similar to the Julian calendar, except that its epoch is equivalent to 1 September 5509 BC on the Julian prophetic calendar. Since the Middle Ages, the Hebrew calendar has been used on rabbinic calculations of the year of creation from the Hebrew Masoretic text of the Bible. This calendar is used within the Jewish communities for religious and other purposes. On the Hebrew calendar, the day begins at sunset. The calendar's epoch, corresponding to the calendar date of the world's creation, is equivalent to sunset on the Julian's proleptic calendar date 6 October 3761 BC. The new year begins at Rosh Hashanah, roughly in September. Year Anno Mundi 5779 or AM 5779 began at sunset on 9 September 2018 on the Gregorian calendar. So they messed up a whole bunch of dates.
Changing the times.
So, see where we at. Okay, while differences in biblical interpretation or in calculation methodology can produce some differences in the creation date, most results fall relatively close to one of those two dominant models. The primary reason for this disparity seems to lie in which underlying biblical text is chosen. It's funny how they chose that word. It seems to lie in which underlying biblical text is chosen. Roughly 5,500 BC, based on the Greek Septuagint text, about 3760 BC, based on the Hebrew Masoretic text. Patriarchs from Adam to Terah, the father of Abraham, are said to be older by as much as 100 years or more when they begat their named son in Greek Septuagint. Then they were in the Latin, the Vulgate, or the Hebrew Tanakh. The net difference between the two major genealogies of Genesis is 1,466 years, ignoring the second year after the flood ambiguity. 85% of the total difference. Now you see why the dates all messed up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just wanted to give you some context of where that calendar comes from and how they look at it. So they're using a Jewish calendar system, but they're not Jewish. Or are they? So now we're gonna Jewish. Are they the Jews? The Jews? I don't know. You tell me. The order has historically opposed federal welfare programs, waste in government, and communism. The IORM support the founding of the Society of American Indians in 1911 and helped organize the Society of American Indians' first two conferences. Who is the Society of American Indians? Let's see.
The rate is going to society that contains no Indians.
And as soon as you say it, my eyes are drawn to a portion that says that. Let me put this in the chat.
Man, you know what? I was just talking trash with the hopes that, it's going to be wrong. There's going to be some Indians.
Antonio Baptiste says, wait, what I missed? How we get to the Jews? Antonio, I just went to the Anno Mundi calendar that the improved Order of Red Men were using because I wanted to know what that was. Darian Wood says, I always felt it was more to the Tea Party story than just what we were always given in so-called school. Now I know they didn't only dress up like us for that event. They took language dress. Yeah, they took language, dress, and culture. You're absolutely right.
No. I ain't giving that much credit. They ain't take language. They created their own and said it was Indian language and dialects.
Yeah, based off of the interpretation.
Right, and that ties into a really deep, dark, dank secret about the American Revolution. It's not quite appropriate for this discussion right now, but just keep a pin in that fact that Ladarian brought up. That
and Copper Indio might know about this on this making up. Well, I know because we done talked about it before. On this making up of languages. You know what makes me mad when I hear this? It's no different how these Star Trek people turn Klingon into a real language and people running around here speaking it today. So it makes me think, how many of these Indian dialects are made up?
Right. Are made up based on what they perceive as babble from the actual indigenous people speaking their own tongue. And here's the thing. The Klingon example, people are actually paying colleges, universities money to learn Klingon.
Okay.
That's a thing. No, that is offered.
TV language
offered. Yes, in college level.
And for those of you who are wondering how that's possible, just look up what organizations can donate money or endowments to universities to create a school and pay a teacher. They're called foundations. So somebody with some money is paying universities to create this curriculum.
And don't they have curriculums for Ebonics? That's just embarrassing.
Right, and that's another example here. So what is Ebonics? Ebonics is what they have assumed to be our overall dialect as a people based on a stereotype, based on probably, so let's tie all of this in from this week. Possibly from those human zoos that we put people on to act in. So we got a couple things here. How many of those people were not only actors, but weren't even part of those communities and were completely acting in that they were acting like they were Saponi
Ish. They were the ish.
Ish.
They were white.
Right. You see what I'm saying? Because we looked at certain tribes that were kept on in human zoos, and they were actors. So were they actual people from the community acting, or some of them even outsiders who were acting like what they thought those people were? This is going to come in heavier later on in this show about people acting like what they think other people are, talking like what they think other people talk like.
That could have been a script too, for all we know. That could have been their orders for them to act that way.
Right.
Well, we know based off of what what we've done research on so far is a combination of both. Because not only were they hiring tribes, but they were hiring actors when they couldn't get the tribes, not just the American Indian tribes, but Native American tribes and also tribes from other countries to fit a narrative. So when they couldn't get the tribes themselves to do it, they hired actors to do this. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Big Hawk says pseudo. Exactly, Big Hawk. So let's look at the Society of American Indians because we're pressing up against time, and I want to make sure we get to this nursery rhyme. The Society of American Indians from 1911 to 1923 was the first national American Indian rights organization run by and for American Indians. The society pioneered 20th century pan-Indianism, the movement promoting unity among American Indians regardless of tribal affiliation. The society was a forum for a new generation of American Indian leaders known as Red Progressives, prominent professionals from the fields of medicine, nursing, law, government, education, anthropology, and ministry. They shared enthusiasm and faith of progressive era. White reformers in the inevitability of progress through education and governmental action. Did y'all hear that? They shared enthusiasm and faith of progressive era. White reformers in the inevitability of progress through education and government action. So, the Native American rights or pan-Indianism, do you know what this is a precursor to? Take a guess. Look at it and then just think about it.
Civil rights?
The NAACP.
Stop the breadcrumbs.
Perfect setup.
When an organization comes in and does something on our behalf, we do not benefit. So let's see what it says. The society met at academic institutions, maintained a Washington, D.C. headquarters, conducted annual conferences, and publishes a quarterly journal of American Indian literature by American Indian authors. The society was one of the first proponents of an American Indian diary. It was the forefront of the fight for Indian citizenship in opening the United Courts of Claims to all tribes and bands of the United States. The Indian Citizenship Law signed on June 2, 1924 was a major achievement for the society. The society anticipated by decades the establishment of the Federal Indian Claims Commission in 1946 to hear claims of Indian tribes against the United States. In 1978, such cases were transferred to the U.S. Court of Claims. The Society of American Indian was forerunner to the modern organizations such as the National Congress of the American Indians. Pan-Indianism, because somebody in the chat asked what that is. The Carlisle Indian School and the Hampton Institute. Whoa. Off-reservation Eastern boarding schools were wellsprings of Pan-Indian leadership. Okay.
What's the year again?
This year, it doesn't say
1920?
Yeah, 1920. But hold on. The Carlisle Indian School and Hampton Institute. Now it's known as Hampton University.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that the Carlisle group, the other half?
Mm-hmm. The Carlisle group is they are a large private equity firm in this area. It says the most significant legacy of the Carlisle Indian School may have been the connections established by the students. Lifelong friendships were formed, and more importantly, ties between desperate Indian nations were forged. Launched in the hopes of Americanizing the students. Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I need to say something right here.
Go ahead, say it, bro. Say it.
This is close to home. I don't live far from Hampton University.
Yeah, my father lives right down the street from Hampton University, so go ahead and get it.
There's a video, and I think I need to put this in the forum, but I posted in the back chat for a few folks to view. But there was a program locally here in Virginia in WHRO public radio about the Cherokee Nottoway Indian tribe, and they were talking about the place, the institution that's now called Hampton University, and its original tie is an Indian school. And when Hampton University was contacted to give their response to Chief Red Hawk's analysis of what was going on, they said, we don't have enough information on that to be able to say what the history is on it. These are people who also go back and are, again, getting money from college students, putting them into debt to teach them history, and they have no historical knowledge about how their school came into being.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're seeing why it was a little awkward for them to be able to weigh in on Hampton University legacy as an Indian school. So you're talking about a school that a lot of so-called blacks go to now.
Yeah, my daughter's an alumni of Hampton University.
Uh-huh. and they just cannot answer anything about them originally being an Indian school. So this is part of where you're seeing a smoking gun of institutions needing to not admit, or at least openly, any connection between the Negro, the so-called African American, and the Indian, and all the dirt that was piled up to bury that fact. I'll yield the mic.
And I want to mention something that David Corey put in that's very powerful when it comes to the Carlyle Group. He says they were the investment group that had benefited from that plane going down and not found.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, while we're talking about dirt, I'm gonna be brief with this, but there's a lot of dirt when you talking about Carlyle Group and some of these other corporations and institutions. There's a lot of dirt going on here.
So,
And the men.
Go ahead, Bounce.
When you said 1920, the reason why I put a stamp on it is what else happened in 1920? Then on the census, we became known as black. At the same time, a Indian movement is being financed and started. I wonder why. Coincidence?
I don't think so. So what it seems like is that these organizations and institutions, it's just the same thing happening all over again. These organizations and institutions were started supposedly for our behalf, but they was doing it so they can get in and see what was going on with us. It was a way for them to infiltrate again, which helped them create the laws that basically boxed us out or alienated us.
Done.
So, wow, that's crazy. The most significant legacy of the Carlisle Indian School may have been the connections between the students. Lifelong friendships were formed, and more importantly, ties between desperate Indian nations were forged. Launched in the hopes of Americanizing the students, the mixing of 85 Indian nations from all parts of the country also had instead the effect of nationalizing the Indian. Dr. Carlos Montezuma describes Carlisle as a Gibraltar, a place to think, observe, and decide. American Indian students from Alaska to Florida represented a rich diversity of tribes and traditions. While students learned Euro-American customs, they also learned about other tribes and religions and how each tribe was subject to irrational and casual dealings by a government. Carlisle alumni across the nation maintain a pan-Indian esprit de corps, and they visited and communicated frequently. Stop.
Recreated the image of an Indian and gave it back to the world.
Which again brings the whole title of their organization into question. How are you an improved society of the red man? Who are you?
But think about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Copper, go ahead. You got it, bro.
I was going to answer that by saying it is so-called improved because it is in their image.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep.
Remember, kill the Indian, save the man. It's still, that process is still going on, which goes back to what we was talking about earlier. I was back last week or this week. They had a plan. This was part of their plan, and they are willing to carry this plan out for decades and millennia. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them whether they don't see the light of day or see their plans come to fruition. They pass this plan on to their children and their great-grandchildren, and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren carry it out to perfection. So if we're if we're not willing to do the same thing, we don't stand a chance. So with that being said, we know that now that, because it talks about American Indian students from Alaska to Florida represented a rich diversity of tribes and traditions. That means these people were being sent to these Carlisle Indian School and Hampton Institute
Yep.
to be re-indoctrinated, and then to go back and teach their tribes.
A lot of people.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Carver. You got it.
I was going to say, a lot of people in the so-called truth community now, and I know that's probably a bad word to some, but a lot of people in the so-called truth community talk about indoctrination and the idea of being put into re-education centers and camps and stuff. This has already happened. This has happened multiple times, and this is an example of it, of people going to a place to be re-educated and indoctrinated and taught how they need to see their country, their communities, and the rest of the world. So if you think that it will not happen, if you think that it couldn't happen, here's proof that it already has.
In plain sight. And I will quote again, racism is a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people. You can see it happening in real time. This whole sense of the image that they give you of the quote unquote Indian, through your genealogy, find your roots and your tradition. So you're not being led by a shadow of a possibility of a thought of what could have been your ancestor by somebody who wasn't your ancestor but was acting as a proxy for your ancestor or in lieu of your ancestor.
Yeah, or trying
find
to
your own truth.
Exactly, or trying to be your proxy.
Right.
Go ahead, Bones.
I was saying, in likeness of, and it's kind of funny. Could that be why in America you better not attempt to even open a school unless you follow their curriculum? Because they want to make sure nobody else can use the school to do what they did? Just a thought. I'm
sorry, go ahead, Copper. I cut you off, Bones.
Oh no. I was going to echo what Bones is saying, and that's the thing. You'll notice as you see these events play out, especially in the last 100 years, the people who were able to get things set up their way shut the door for everybody else, or at least made it difficult to figure out how they did it and do it in the same way. So you can probably achieve the same goal, but you can't go about it the way they did it because they cut that off after they got what was theirs because they had to protect it.
And again, what it boils back to is they're doing all this using private foundations. They're doing it by using nonprofit organizations. There's more than 47 different types of nonprofit organizations that they're using to get this accomplished. And then their offshoots are nonprofit organizations. And those offshoots are nonprofit organizations. And it provides a certain amount of anonymity, which we had covered a couple of months ago. So if you get a chance, go back and look at that.
And what's the key to a nonprofit? Services.
Yep. Providing a service.
They didn't say for who. Just got to provide a service, huh?
So, and David Coy says he was basically parroting what you were saying. He was like, that's why they don't want you to homeschool. Well, at the end of the day, the best way to get around that is create a nonprofit, let the nonprofit homeschool. There you go. Use what they took from us to help our people. What they use to hurt our people, use it to help our people. Go ahead, Bones.
How else you think you had these Catholic schools, these Protestant schools, these Jewish schools, or Islamic schools? They're nonprofits. Even your private schools.
So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and read, and then we're gonna transition to the nursery rhymes. Okay, so that was the offshoots that we talked about. Hold on. This is important. Independent Order of Red Men. In 1850, the German language Metamora tribe of Baltimore refused to pay a benefit, even though the great councils of Maryland and the United States decided that it was legal and proper for them to do so. The group then surrendered its charter and formed a new German-speaking Independent Order of Red Men. Whoa, stop. What the?
Bring it on back. Bring it on back.
In 1850, notice all this stuff is going on around the same time that our ancestors are being relocated, removed, and reconstructed right out of history. It's the German language Metamora tribe of Baltimore. Anybody ever heard of that tribe? Because I know I haven't.
Negative. 30 seconds ago.
They refused to pay a benefit, even though the great councils of Maryland and the United States decided that it was legal and proper to do so. So the state and the government said it was legal and proper for them to do so. And you know why they said it was legal and proper to do so? Bylaws, constitutions. It was written in the bylaws and constitutions for these organizations or offshoots to pay a benefit. That's why even the United States had to agree that it was legal and proper. So if you don't think that these entities are sovereign, you're fooling yourself. Proof again. So it says the group then surrendered its charter and formed a new German-speaking Independent Order of Red Men. So what they're saying is they surrendered their charter because they could no longer go off of the charter for this private organization. They then recreated their own new German-speaking Independent Order, which basically means they already had a sector of German-speaking Order of Red Men. So who are these Germans? It says it asked at other German language groups or STAMs to join the group, but few did so. The independent order had a height of 12,000 members through the 1800s, and many STAMs returned to the improved order. Now again, this is happening in the mid-1800s. What else was happening in the mid-1800s? Remember, there was a large influx of who? Germans and Irish. Remember that? So what do you think these people were being flooded into or moved into? They were going through these organizations to be re-indoctrinated.
We're talking about close to 15 million people.
Yep. That was their acculturation and their transition into being Americans. They were shedding the European and becoming American.
1828 definition of American. Coming into full spotlight.
Exactly.
David Corey says, aka Huguenots. The independent order, again, it said a height of 12,000 members, right? But then the many returned to the improved order. Why? Because that order was more established. They had more funding. They had more clout. And I probably could say that these were heavily tied into some of the bosses that we talked about yesterday. So, it still exists in 1896, but according to Albert C. Stevens, it gave no sign of vigorous growth. In the early 1920s, Arthur Prius could not get into contact with them, but felt it probably still existed. They went to hide.
Now I got a question. Something just popped in my head.
Go ahead.
The 1820 definition of American was written in 1820, right?
Was it 1828? Free? I think it's 1828.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's written in 1828, right? So where it says now used for the descendants of Europeans, when they talking in 1828, American was being used for the descendants of Europeans?
What do you mean? Trying to follow.
It was written in 1828.
Right.
So if they saying now, are they speaking in 1828? Or are we making a mistake of when we say now, we're applying it to now? But their now would have been 1928.
Correct.
In 1828, they were calling Europeans Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Was just pointing that out on how it's written.
Correct. A native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. The name American must always exalt the pride of patriotism. Washington. That's the definition.
Tie that into these societies now, and you can see the changing of the American. They're swapping. It's the swapping of the American.
Yep.
It's the Great American Slav Trade.
Right. Just real quick, Bones made a movie come to mind, Trading Places.
Mm-hmm.
Very rich, very wealthy. Couple of guys make a bet, and the wager in the bet is $1. That they could change these men, ruin their lives, and do it all successfully without anybody knowing. Look at how that movie, for all those that have seen it, look at how that movie plays into this. Is an allegory of what we're talking about right now. Trading places. We're gonna become you, and you're gonna become us. Because when you beyond all the Pan-Africanism that you see in some of our communities, who are the main people talking about all of us being African? Who are the ethnologists? This is gonna come up later. Who are the anthropologists that bring up all of the stuff about everybody being African? They don't look like us. They didn't come from here. Most of these people came from have European stock. So they traded places with us and made us the Africans. And they took on the mantle of being the American or the Indian.
Because don't they do the law, change the definitions, then do the action?
Yeah.
You notice they changed the law in 1828. What? Then you got 1831 coming right around the corner. You got emancipation. Then you got 14 million people coming over here. They changed the definition of their classification before their feet even touch the ground.
All right. So let's go ahead and finish up with the last part so we can get on to the racist nursery rhymes. The last part they have here is the Afro-American Order of Red Men. Yep, you heard it right. The Afro-American Order of Red Men. In 1904, 2 years before there was a complaint about there being too many of us swarthy Indians, another group called the Independent Order of Red Men emerged in Virginia, this time composed entirely of African Americans. Wait, what? Rewind that. In 1904, another group called the Independent Order of the Red Men emerged in Virginia, this time composed entirely of African Americans. When the improved order objected to the use of the name, the leader of the group, R.M. Spears, had the charter withdrawn and renamed the group Afro-American Order of Red Men and Daughters of Pocahontas. The Virginia IORM still apparently considered an injunction against the new group, but it is unclear how the episode turned out. We know how that episode turned out. A tribe number 23 based in Wetumpka, Virginia, is attested by the existence of a ribbon badge in a collection of the Theta Scalpel, suggesting that the group had at least 23 local tribes in the state. The badge is identical to those worn by the IORM, except that the AAORM initials. Now, this goes back to what I was saying. You have an African American group that names themselves the Improved Order of Red Men. And these individuals are so appalled, even though they were the ones that are inappropriately acculturating somebody else's ethnicity, grief, and culture. And now they get mad because somebody is trying to take it back.
Doesn't it sound like today's time when they talk about no more immigrants? The immigrants are saying no more immigrants?
Mm-hmm.
Cycles, mindsets. At the end of the day, it's a mindset. I reserve further comment.
So this goes back to what I was saying. Why is it that the Powhatans tribe are not up in arms about these individuals using their name and and their likeness? I'm just saying.
Something to think about.
So while we marinate on that, marinate, excuse me. we're gonna let people, and we're gonna remind people that they're gonna need their hard hats for these nursery rhymes. So here we go. All right. Yes, David, I know I messed the word all the way up. So, Free, Bones, Copper, would y'all please talk about how we came across the nursery rhymes, and how it just messed some of our heads up. Lady Free, I'll let you go first. What was your experience when reading this information? I'm sorry, go ahead.
You said, how do we come across it? Actually, we've come across this information a few times during our research. It's just where we are in the research now and seeing this systematic attempt to warp our minds. It's time to return as a child and see where a lot of these starting blocks started building these constructs in our minds that have us thinking in a skewed way or a warped way. And some things, it's so crazy because a child is so innocent, so impressionable, and so innocent. And when you think about a lot of these little nursery rhymes, little songs we would sing on the playground, or like jump roping or whatnot, it brings a sense of nostalgia. When you start to hear some of the vitriol behind the wording and the intent of these songs, which are meant to make you commit them to memory, it's enough to really make your skin crawl. It really is. So I'm going to forewarn everyone, by all means, put on a hard hat and take a deep breath, because this isn't the easiest road to travel, especially when you start thinking about the effect that it has on your children. It's one thing you do something to me. You touch a child, that's something very different, and it causes a different response in me. So glad that we're doing this together, but buckle up, put on the hard hats, and let's get our minds right.
What say you, Copper?
Well, to echo what Lady Free was saying, a lot of us here have young children, and so it's very fresh in our minds that the nursery rhymes and the little jingles and stuff they learn pretty much from the time they're born. Right? They hear these songs, they internalize them. They almost use them as mnemonic devices to learn the alphabet and their numbers and things like that. And these songs over time get sanitized, the words get changed so that people who identified them as being negative or offensive have essentially assimilated them. This is part of the acculturation we were talking about, the enculturation we were talking about in previous shows in this past week. This is where our minds get. I guess a better way to say it. This is where things that are racist become okay with us. And this gets into songs that were given to us in traveling minstrel shows, the vaudeville shows and stuff, which we're going to get into. But this is the root. These are the earliest things that children learn, and they stay with them for the rest of their lives. And so when you talk about indoctrination, when you talk about colonization, this is where the nail is hitting the coffin on this kind of thing, where you've had generations that have been so removed from who they are, and not only are they being removed and the evidence being hidden, but now their minds are in this new place where they don't necessarily belong. So this will be difficult, but I assure you this will be a very fulfilling build we're going to have right now on this.
Bones, anything you want to say to the people while they prepping and putting their hard hats on and getting ready?
This one gonna shake you to the core.
That's it. Okay.
And mainly, it'll show how this process was started. It'll show how people were programmed to think and view people in a particular light. And it also shows how the components of these are still on us today and still being used for the same purposes. So yeah, it's a deep one.
Okay. So the article that I put in the link that I put for the article, it goes on to read, it says, and this is even in the article, so I'm going to read this just in case you have little ones with you. It says, warning, we are talking about racism in this article. There is some offensive language below. Some of that offensive language is like the N-word and words that are derogatory towards our people. So that's the reason why I'm reading this. Normally we wouldn't, use this type of language or use this vernacular, but it's imperative that we do so for the context in this content, for the content in this context. So you can get the full understanding, and understanding of how these people that were writing these lyrics were thinking and how it's affecting our children. So if you got little ones that you don't want to hear this, just turn away from this or get back to it later, but just know that we're going to be saying some things that people might consider offensive. So with that being said, here we go. A little over a week ago, NPR had an illuminating and poignant report on the racist beginnings of the ice cream truck song. The song's melody, turns out, was popularized in antebellum minstrel shows where the lyrics parodied a free black man attempting to conform to white high society by dressing in fine clothes and using big words. To make matters worse, the song became the basis for an offensive folk song in 1916 titled "Nigger Lover a Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha." That's the title of the song. Before turning into... Go ahead, Bones.
Oh, none.
Enrique said, bruh, not the ice cream truck. Enrique, it gets a lot worse before it gets better. So, it says, before turning into the melody that beckons ice cream seekers today. For Theodore Johnson III, who wrote the article, knowledge of the history ruined his ice cream trucks for him. When the reach of racism robs me of fond memories from my childhood, it feels intensely personal again. Whenever I hear the music now, the antique voice laughing about niggers and the watermelon fills my head, Johnson wrote. Johnson's piece got us thinking about the songs like the ice cream truck song, a seemingly innocuous folk song, nursery rhyme, or jingle that we may not have known were racist, and what we should do when we learn about their histories. All right now. So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, early 19th century. Now, let's put this in context. What was going on in the early 19th century? Look at where we're at. Look at what our ancestors were dealing with. Look at what our ancestors were going through, and look at the mindset. So to put this in its proper context for those who are just listening and may not understand what we're saying, this is during the time period where there had been at least 16 to 17 million Irish and Germans who are immigrating here and have a very hatred look or hatred feel for our people because of the world fairs that were used to indoctrinate them through the theaters of the world of the human zoos. These people that were acting out stereotypes of our people. So you can see how these stereotypes come out through these songs and these nursery rhymes. So I wanted to put that in context with people. So this is the early 1900s. So the words eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. That's the original version. An alternate version, catch a Negro by his toe. If he hollers, make him pay $20 every day.
That is so ridiculous. And if that don't sound like this overly Texas, I don't know what does. Oh.
So it doesn't get better. So if you got kids and you don't want them to hear this, just turn this down, because we're going to be covering this for the rest of the show, and they're going to be using the N-word a lot, and probably some other negative connotations about people and our ancestors. So now it's going to go on to read, the meaning of this rhyme is rooted in the slave trade. There's an idea that it comes from slave selection of description of the white slave owners would do if they caught a runaway slave. It was actually a part of a 2004 lawsuit against Southwest. The black plaintiffs in the case sued the airline for discrimination because a flight attendant had used the rhymes while urging them to take their seats. The jury did not side with the plaintiffs, and though they appealed, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the initial ruling. Iron Flying Squirrel said the Klan wrote this. I wouldn't doubt it. So, pick a bale of cotton, 1801 through 1861. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Gotta jump down, turn around, oh lordy, pick a bale a day. There's also another version that goes, hold on, it doesn't, hold on. The song came, oh, so it doesn't tell I gotta play this video, and I'm not playing the video. So it jumps down and says, the meaning, the song can be seen as glorifying and poking fun at slaves' conditions. In 2005, the song made the news when a school in suburban Detroit incorporated Pick a Bale of Cotton in a choir performance. The officials at the Anderson Middle School removed the song from the program after a complaint.
What year was that?
That was in 2005.
Racism is a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people. Still perpetuating to this day. Come on, if you are not part of the solution, you are the problem. Let's be clear. Still going on? Stop it.
And not to mention, the original versions of these songs are still in publishing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, still in publishing, the same time that these songs or these nursery rhymes are being put into mainstream usage, this is the same time that these human zoos are going on. Same time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's exactly right. So compare that to what you're seeing today. Compare that to the reality TV that's giving you this narrative about us and who we are, going alongside the music that is giving the same narrative about us. So you're getting it in performing art, both audio and visual as well at the same time. So you're getting these songs that are coming here with all of these folks, tell you who you are and making fun of you. And at the same time, they're seeing these human zoos reaffirming.
What happened, Copper? Copper. Oh, he muted.
Who they think you are.
Okay. 1840s. Jimmy cracked corn. The words read, "Old massa, gone and I'll let him rest. They say all things are for the best, but I'll never forget till the day I die." Then it dots off. It doesn't go into the rest of the song. It said the song is about a slave and the death of his master. There's a point where the slave who is singing the song laments for his master. But some scholars argue that there is a subtext of the slave rejoicing.
Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
And there are 2 tickets more in our queue where the client approval is not being given on it, and we are
What's that in the background I hear?
What?
Say what?
Do what? That's not me.
Okay. So, Oh Susanna, 1848. It rained all night the day I left. The weather, it was dry. The sun so hot, I froze to death. So they just give you the first version of the lyrics. It says the meaning, the protagonist of the song is an African-American slave who was portrayed as dumb and naive. In the song, the singer can't grasp the ideas of temperature and geography. Camptown Races, 1850. The original lyrics. The Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. I come down the wind, my hat caved in, doo-dah, doo-dah. I go back home with a pocket full of tin, oh, doo-dah day. This vocabulary used by lyricist Stephen Foster is meant to mimic black speech. There's a deliberate choice here to make the singer sound unsophisticated. Should we change the songs if we know they're offensive? Should we ban them? That's the question. So I'll read what they put. These songs, many of which are still sung today, aren't just uncomfortable because of their lyrics. Most were used in minstrel blackface performances in the past. An unavoidable question arises. What do you do with these songs? Ban them? Stop singing them? Change them? For the most part, schools in the U.S. have gone with the latter. But that decision raises even more questions. What kind of music are we censoring? What kind of music are we preserving? And who decides this? At NPR, Johnson struggled with a similar question when faced with whether or not to tell his children about the origins of the ice cream truck song. Do I empower them with the history of our country or encourage the youthful exuberance induced by the ice cream truck? Is it my responsibility to foul the sweet taste of ice cream with their first taste of racism? I contacted Matthew Shaffelett, professor of music theory of Associate Dean of Undergraduate Studies at Florida State, for the expert opinion. And he says, when it comes to these songs, Shaffelett explains that children should be taught the modified versions because they can't grasp the nuances of race just yet and don't have multiple levels of understanding. Later they can learn where the songs come from, and the lessons will be an important one. These songs are part of a racist history, our nation's history, and we want to be aware of our racist roots, Shaffelett says, but he encourages them to learn the songs. That's stupid. I wouldn't.
Why would you do that? Because now you're imprinting the melody, the rhythm, the timing, and the cadence of the song into the child's mind. So then when they do come in contact with the original words, it's just plugged directly in. Look at a child now when a child hears a song on the radio. They mimic it. Don't know the words, they mumble it. But once they come aware of the original words, it just kicked directly in. Who they fooling?
Yeah, so, you're right. I mean, let me just continue to read it. David Corey says, where's Doodle? He made us do this. It says, we don't always do this with American folk songs. We change the songs and scrub them clean. In other musical instances, this is not the case. J.S. Bach's St. John Passion, for instance, is set to anti-Semitic texts. It's well known that there is some challenging language in the Gospel of John. Michael Morrison, a noted Bach scholar, said in 2013 interview with WQXR Radio. Shaffelett explains that we usually attach a disclaimer to Bach and explain how his art was a product of his time. But these songs can teach us about our past. For instance, the songs may have provided information about the cruelty of slavery to Northerners in the 1800s. For audiences today, they provide insight into historical and political context of those times. It becomes clear to scholars that blackface minstrels were really the North's only exposure for what was going on in the South, Chaplin says, explaining that while these shows were racist and terrible, they were trying to portray some semblance to reality of what life was like in the South. Stop.
For who though? What life is like for who?
But the funny part is they're trying. You see how they're trying to separate that? They use this so the North could know what the South was experiencing, like the North didn't know. The North knew.
Propaganda. They need to stop, for real. This is ridiculous.
The North knew.
They used that for the immigrants that they were bringing in. Them 15 million immigrants. That's what that was set up for.
Mm-hmm.
Shame.
So, let's see. Yeah. So then it goes on to read, Jimmy Crack Corn, one of Abraham Lincoln's favorite songs, is one example Shafter points out. The song portrays a slave who shows emotion and portrays longing in the wake of his master's death. It was written at a time when slaves were regularly dehumanized and not presented as having internal lives or both. But the slave portrayed in Jimmy is someone who has feelings, whether it be lament or rejoicing, someone who is human, someone who isn't just property, Shafter explains. In comparison, O Susanna, the slave is depicted as too dumb to realize his situation or grasp the concept of geography. That's more than the slavery as property portrayal. Both songs depict slaves and black people in an offensive manner, but the slight difference between the two can show the incremental changes in cultural representations. Again, this is no way a defense for those songs. Well, you just made a defense. A defense for keeping the original lyrics or absolving the audience members from their consumption of racial material. But studying these songs within the proper context suggests the songs represents more than many may appear at first listen. In Johnson's article, he writes that they ultimately decided against telling his kids about the origins of the ice cream truck song, but they will likely learn it one day. And his story raised awareness among its readers. Perhaps there lies the value of these songs. Excuse me. Their existence raises awareness and starts conversations that we should have in the simply were forgotten. The stories we learn from them are painful but also valuable. The songs meant something at the time they were created, and they have a different and important meaning to our lives now. Remembering past that we should never forget. It then says an update. The reader pointed out that I was inconsistent in citing the use of the word nigger in lyrics and its piece. I've updated the piece to reflect those concerns. It's interesting to see how a Europeanized view of this downplays it so much to where it's just part of history.
I got a major problem with that, because how can you say if it was created, the foundation of it was meant for hurt and hate? It doesn't matter what you put on top of it later. The foundation was built on the crooked premises. So the only thing you can do is tear it down and rebuild it. You can't use something that's, man, that's crazy. That's foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it goes back to they're prepared and indoctrinated with preparation of how to answer and address these questions when we ask them, because they knew that this was going to come out or leak out eventually. And at the end of the day, what we need to realize and how we address this is, one, we don't teach it. Don't teach it to your children. And if someone teaches it to your children, go to the schools and say something. That's what I would do. Number two, let's get to a point where we have our own schools. I'm not saying yank your children out of school today, but let's get to a point to where we have our own nonprofits that teach our children the way they should be taught. And when we start doing that, they'll be forced to change. Because right now, as long as we are acquiescing as a group, then they're going to continue to do this. So that's my solution. That's a solution. That's not the solution. Comments? Anybody?
I mean, what can you say? Like, truly, what can you say? When you see the result and the impact that all of this has had on a people and the damage that it's done to psyches, the impressions that it's made. I mean, what can you say?
Well, here's the thing. We know who we're dealing with. We know what we're dealing with. And at the end of the day, instead of saying, the question is what do we do about it? Well, you gotta know who you are, because we know who they are. We know what lengths they have gone through and what lengths they go through to keep this stereotype and this racism prevalent and upfront. So we need to do what we're supposed to do and what we were put on this planet to do. Assemble. Get your family together. Assemble. Start with your local situation and then spread out like a ripple in a pond. Stop trying to do everything national. It's not going to work that way. That's my suggestion.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. And in addition, if I may add, once you know better, do better. So when you see that these nursery rhymes, I don't care what the wording is today, when you see that it has an origin that negative, malicious towards your people, towards your child, don't allow them to partake in that. I mean, those songs are sung in child care centers and daycares, at schools, like in kindergarten. They're all in library books. You hear them on Nick Jr. in the backdrop of Looney Tunes and all kinds of. Why do they keep pumping this merry melody? And I'm saying that in air quotes, a merry melody into your ears. Like the Pied Piper leading your children astray to colonize their minds, like they're the rats. Flipping the script on you, completely flipping it on you, telling you who you are and you whistling Dixie the whole way to destruction. We got to get our minds right. When we see that something is not for us, let's stop talking about, oh, that's not for us. That has a negative origin. Affect change. Don't allow it. As for me and mine, you ain't bringing that here. We're not humming that. We're not singing that. We're not participating in that. Why would I? Why am I going to hum as part of my own demise and destruction, or the destruction of my people? I might as well just go ahead and watch the fireworks of 4th of July at the same time while I'm humming. At some point, we have to get past the mind that they want us to use, which is the mind of a homeborn slave. We weren't ever slaves. We're not homeborn slaves. So what mentality is this? Who told us to think like this? Time to shed old mindsets and concepts and like get it right.
Exactly.
Out.
Exactly. So I mean, again, but it's true. This is one thing to sit here, lament, and complain. It's time for action. And I'm not talking about the type of action where we go grab picket signs and hit the streets. No, I'm talking about real action. I'm talking about find out who you are so you'll know where to start. And placing blame on people and organizations, that's as outdated as 1850. It's time to look at the man and the woman in the mirror and be like, what am I going to do about this? I can't control what the churches did. I can't control what the mosques did. I can't control what the Masons did. I can't control what the Ku Klux Klan did. I can't control what my ancestors did, but I can control what I do. I promise you that. That much I can control. So because I can control that, where should I start? With me. With my relatives. With my community. Because everything starts with me. That's why it's very rarely you'll ever hear me complain about anything, because it's my personal responsibility to take control and control the things that I can control and do the things that I can do. Anybody can talk. There are millions of YouTube channels. There are millions of radio stations. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of series stations, and all of them are complaining. Very few offer solutions, and even fewer are doing something. So the question is, Do you want to be part of the problem by complaining about it? Or do you want to be part of the solution by doing something? That's a question only you can answer. So with that, we're going to go forth and continue to bring in this lovely information about this stereotyping they have done to our people. So that needs to be said.
Tummy time.
So this one's about the watermelon stereotype. And for the record, I can't stand watermelon. So
I don't like it either. The consistency. All right. Let's go.
I eat in the comfort of my own home.
really, it says watermelon stereotype is a stereotype of African Americans that states that African Americans have an unusually great appetite for watermelons. This stereotype has remained prevalent into the 21st century. When American slaves, I think now this is interesting. And it says history. When American slaves, so they didn't just say African American, they said American slaves, won their emancipation during the Civil War in the 1860s, free black people grew, ate, and sold watermelons, and in doing so made the fruit a symbol of their freedom. Southern whites threatened by blacks' newfound freedom responded by making the fruit a symbol of black people's perceived uncleanliness, laziness, childishness, and unwanted public presence. The first published caricature of blacks reveling in watermelon is believed to have appeared in Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper in 1869. Defenders of slavery used the fruit to paint African Americans as a simple-minded people who were happy when provided watermelon and a little rest. The slaves enjoyed a watermelon was also seen by the Southern whites as a sign of their own supposed benevolence. Watermelons have been viewed as a major symbol in the iconography of racism in the United States. Now here's the funny thing. Here's the thing that I find very interesting. The way they paint this and portray this. Grand Rising James Gilmore. The reason why I find this interesting is because I don't care how you feel about the South being from the North, but one thing you better not do is go down the South popping smack, because you will be popped full of holes. There ain't no punks down there. That's a fact. And the South didn't just get like that 20 years ago. They've been like that. So to infer that these Southern individuals or these tribes from the South are benevolent and weak spits in the face of the wars where they were literally kicking people's behinds. Literally. So how do you go from being such a great warrior to being an enslaved, benevolent lover of master? Go back and read some of those Indian wars. They won't no punks. They won't scare nobody either. Just so you know. So then it goes on and says, the stereotype was perpetuated in minstrel shows after depicting African Americans as ignorant and work shy, given the song and dance and inordinately fond of watermelon. For several decades in the late 19th century through the mid 20th century, it was promoted through caricatures in print, film, sculpture, and music, and was a common decorative theme on household goods. Even as recently as Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign and his subsequent administration's watermelon's imagery has been used by his detractors. The truthfulness of the stereotype has been questioned. One survey conducted from 1994 to 1996 showed that African Americans at the time, 12.5% of the country's population, only accounted for 11% of the United States watermelon consumption.
So who eating all the watermelon again?
The link between African Americans and watermelons may have been promoted in part by African American minstrels who sang popular songs as the Watermelon Song and Who Dat Watermelon, Oh That Watermelon in their shows, and which were set down in print in the 1870s. The 1839 World Columbian Exposition held in Chicago planned to include a Colored People's Day featuring African American entertainers and free watermelons for African American visitors whom the exposition's organizers hoped to attract. It
I
was
wish you would. My bad. Couldn't hold it.
Now here's the funny part. Where was these shows done? They was done up north. So for someone to insinuate or think that the North was unaware of what was going on, that's a lie. They were the main propagators of this racism. You won't have no. Think about this. Does somebody please do some research and find out if any of these world fairs were down south? I bet you they weren't. That world fair wouldn't have lasted a day. Please do some research. It goes on to say that it was held in Chicago, planned to include a Colored People's Day, featured African American entertainers and free watermelons for the African American visitors, whom the exposition's organizers hoped to attract. It was a flop, as the city's African American community boycotted the exposition, along with many of the performers booked to attend on Colored People's Day. At the end of the 19th century, there was a brief genre of watermelon pictures, cinematic caricatures of African American life showing such supposedly typical pursuits of eating watermelons, cakewalking, and stealing chickens, with the titles such as Watermelon Contest in 1896, Dancing Darkies in 1896, Watermelon Feast in 1896, and Who Said Watermelon from 1900 to 1902. The African American characters in such features were initially played by black performers, but from about 1903 onwards, they were replaced by white actors performing blackface. Do I need to say anything?
A slight correction though. There were some world fairs that were held like in Atlanta, South Carolina, different places in the South. But you have to remember that different world fairs have different exhibits and they have different content. So of course they're not going to be coming to your backyard with a bunch of blackface and, you know, doing all this, that, and the third. You're right there to be like, what is this?
Right.
They're going to take propaganda someplace where you're not, so that when people come in contact with you, they automatically have an impression of you. And in this day and time, we see them locking doors and clutching purses and swaddling children. And that's where a lot of this comes from. The media is still doing it. The medium still doing it, giving that picture of this savage, quote unquote, black man in the streets, causing all this destruction and chaos. Really though?
Exactly.
Is that really what's going on?
And that's my point. So for them, right? So for them to portray that the North did not know what's going on in the South, when the vice president during the time of the peak of this campaign of slavery versus anti-slavery was a Democrat from the South, how could the North not know? So it's BS. And also you had your representatives in office in DC and in Philadelphia knowing what was going on. So they knew. But anyway. So then it goes on to say several of the film depicted African Americans as having a virtually uncontrollable appetite for watermelons. For instance, Watermelon Contest and Watermelon Feast included scenes for black men consuming the fruits at such a speed they spew out mush and seeds. The author, Naftali Lawrence, suggests that such scenes had a subtext of representing black male sexuality, in which black men love and desire the fruit in the same manner they love sex. In short, black males have a watermelon appetite and are always trying to see who can eat the most, with the strength of this appetite depicted by black males' uncontrollable devouring watermelon. Early 1900 postcards often depicted African Americans as animalistic creatures, happy to do nothing but eat watermelon, a bid to dehumanize them. Other such coon cards, as they were popularly known, depicted African Americans stealing, fighting over becoming watermelons. One poem from the early 1900s, picture to the right, reads, George Washington, Watermelon, Columbus Brown. I see black as any little coon in town. I'm eating melon. I can put a pig to shame. For watermelon, am my middle name. In March 1916, Harry C. Brown recorded a song titled Nigger Lover of Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha. Such songs were popular during that period and many made use of the watermelon stereotype. The script for Gone with the Wind contained a scene in which Scarlett O'Hara's slave Prissy, played by Butterfly McQueen, eats watermelon, which the actress refused to perform. Use of this stereotype started to die down circa 1950s. So that means it was from the late 1800s to 1950 and may mostly vanish by 1970, although it continued power as a stereotype, could still be recognized in films as Watermelon Man in 1970, Watermelon Woman in 1996, and Bamboozled in 2001. Watermelons also provided the theme for many racial jokes in the 2000s. Protesters against African Americans frequently, among other things, hold up watermelons. Racist imagery of President Barack Obama consuming watermelon was subject of viral emails circulated by his political opponents. After his election, watermelon-themed imagery of Obama continued to be created and endorsed. In February 2009, Los Alamos Mayor Dean Gross tenured his resignation, albeit very temporarily, after forwarding the White House an email deemed as racist. The message displayed a picture of the White House lawn planted with watermelons. Gross claimed that he was not aware of the watermelon stereotype. Boo, liar. A statue of Obama holding a watermelon in Kentucky drew criticism. The owner of the statue maintained that the watermelon was there because the statue might get hungry standing out there. In October 1st, 2014, Boston Herald ran an editorial cartoon by Jerry Holbert depicting an intruder asking if Obama has tried watermelon-flavored toothpaste. Too much controversy. The National Book Award ceremony in November 2014, author Daniel Handler made a controversial remark after author Jacqueline Woodson was presented with an award for young people's literature. Woodson, who was black, won the award for Brown Girl Dreaming. During the ceremony, Handler noted that Woodson is allergic to watermelon, a reference to the racist stereotype. His comments were immediately criticized. Handler apologized via Twitter and donated $10,000 to We Need Diverse Books and promised to match donations up to $100,000. In New York Times op-ed published shortly thereafter, the pain of the watermelon joke, Jacqueline Woodson explained that in making light of that deep and troubled history with his joke, Daniel Handler had come from a place of ignorance, but underscored the need for her mission to give people a sense of this country's brittle and brutal history, so no one ever thinks they can walk out onto stage one evening and laugh at another's too often painful past. In January 7, 2016, Australian cartoonist Chris Roy Taylor published a cartoon of Jamaican cricketer Chris Gayle with a whole watermelon in his mouth. Gayle had been in the news for making controversial suggestive comments towards a female interviewer during a live broadcast. In an unrelated story, a boy eating a whole watermelon, rind and all, in the stands of the cricket match had also gone viral. The cartoon depicted Cricket Australian official asking the boy if he could borrow the watermelon for a while so Gayle would be unable to speak. Taylor said he was unaware of the stereotype and the cartoon was removed. Claiming ignorance and getting away with it. In the safety training episode of American television series The Office, Scranton branch manager Michael throws a watermelon off the roof of the office onto a trampoline. After it bounces and hits a car, Michael tells his co-worker Dwight, decorative the car alarm, clean up the mess, find out whose car it is. It's Stanley's, called the officer, James P. Albany. See if he handles hate crimes. On October 22, 2017, Fox and Friends morning show, Fox News Channel addressed a Hispanic boy which was mistaken by many in the mainstream media as African American in a watermelon Halloween costume, drawing ire on the social media. Overt racism, foolish racism, or tone-deaf racism. Take your pick, it's still racism. So this stuff is still going on today. Everybody quiet.
We have a decompression chamber or something. A quiet room.
I'm decompressing now. I'll be done in like 10 minutes free.
I will play what is known as some investigations music while we decompress for a couple of seconds. Here we go. Okay, that's enough. One last one, maybe. Bye bye black sheep. This one's gonna hit a nerve. Pamela Hall says racism will continue to exist until we teach the truth about the false history they know. Exactly. The only way we'll be able to do that, we gotta get our organizations right. We gotta come together. We gotta know who we are. We can't do it just by coming together without any form of organization, expecting somebody to listen. You ain't gonna make them listen. Your army ain't big enough. So, with that being said, bye bye black sheep. So, I'm going to restate the warning. There is racist lyrics in this description of bye bye black sheep, and there's some words that might be offensive. You might see the N word. You might see some other offensive terminologies and tones directed at our ancestors and us. So if you have any children that are listening, you might want to either turn the volume down and listen later, or let them listen. But I just want to put that information out there so as not to be overtly offensive. But it's important that this information is read in its context so you get the understanding of what is being said. So with that, I'm going to read Bye Bye Black Sheep, and this is on Wikipedia. I put it in a link. Bye Bye Black Sheep is an English nursery rhyme, the earliest surviving version of which dates from 1731. The words have not changed very much in 2.5 centuries. It is sung to a variant of 1761 French melody. Uncorroborated theories have advanced to explain the meaning of the rhyme, such as that it is a complaint against taxes levied on medieval English wool trade. In the 20th century, it was a subject of controversies in debates about political correctness. It has been used in literature and popular culture as a metaphor and allusion. The Roud Folk Song Index classifies the lyrics and their variations as number 4439. Okay. Recent versions tend to take the following form. Bye bye black sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. One for my master, one for the dame, one for the little boy who lives down the lane. The rhyme is a single stanza in trachea, or chori, which is common in nursery rhymes and relatively easier for younger children to master. The Round Folklore Song Index, which catalogs folk songs and their variations by number, classify the song as 4439, and variations have been collected across Great Britain and North America. The rhyme is usually sung to a variant of the 1961 French melody Vous dirigez maman, which is also used for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and the alphabet song. The words and melody were first published together by A.H. Rosewig in Nursery Songs and Games, published in Philadelphia in 1879. Pay attention to the date, 1879. What was going on there?
Reconstruction era.
Man.
As with many nursery rhymes, attempts have been made to find origins and meanings for the rhyme, most which have no corroborating evidence. Catherine Elias Thomas in The Real Personages of Mother Goose, 1930, suggests the rhyme referred to resentment at the heavy taxation of wool. This has particularly been taken to refer to the medieval English Great Old Customs wool tax in 1275. Another example of lectio difficilior. This has particularly been taken to refer... Okay, I already read that. More recently, the rhyme has been connected to slave trade, particularly in the southern United States. This explanation was advanced during debates over political correctness and the use of the reform of nursery rhymes in the 1980s. but has no supporting historical evidence. Rather than being negative, the wool of black sheep may have been prized as it could be made into dark cloth without dyeing. The rhyme was first printed in Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook, the oldest surviving collection of English language nursery rhymes published in 1744, with lyrics very similar to those still used today. So in this rendition it reads, "Baa baa black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, Mary, have I 3 bags full. 2 for my master, 1 for my dame, none for the little boy that cries in the lane." And the next surviving printed in Mother Goose Melody, the rhyme remained the same except for the last lines, which were given as, "but none for the little boy who cries in the lane." So let's look at the modern controversies they say with this song. Controversy emerged over changing the language of Baa Baa Black Sheep in Britain from 1986 because it was alleged in popular press it was seen as racially dubious. This was based only on a rewriting of the rhyme in one private nursery as an exercise for children there and not on any local government policy. Similar controversy emerged in 1999 when the reservations about the rhyme were submitted to Birmingham City Council by a working group of racism and children's resources, which were never approved or implemented. 2 private nurseries in Oxfordshire in 2006 altered the song of Baa Baa Rainbow Sheep, with black being replaced with a variety of other adjectives, like happy, sad, hopping, and pink. In 2012, a private nursery in Kingston upon Thames replaced black with little for their Easter show. Commentators have asserted that these controversies have been exaggerated or distorted by some elements of the press as part of a more general campaign against political correctness. See how they try to diminish the effect of this racism? In 2014, and then they blame the press, right? And they are the press. 2014, there was reportedly a similar controversy in Australia, state of Victoria. So that's the Baa Baa Black Sheep nursery rhyme. So thoughts, concerns, questions, observations, frustrations. Let me see what's going on in the chat.
It shows why it's important to be aware of your surroundings, of your environment, of what you're exposed to and what you allow your children to be exposed to. We know it's a program. We know that the program is designed to get you as young as possible. It's like you said before, we know what it is, so the solution is to start having our own so we can start getting further and further away from this programming that's causing us to be so detrimental to ourselves.
And here's another point. You also have to be aware of who you associate yourself with and what they're programming their family members with and what they're aware of. Because if you don't, you may be aligning and associating yourself with somebody that's a part of one of these private organizations that's propagating this mess. That's why it's important to know who you are around and who can validate for that person. We don't just say this just to be saying it. These are conversations that need to be had, and you need to get their viewpoints on them. Because do you want to be associated with people that think this type of propagation is okay? If so, that's your choice, but at least you should know. That's why it's always important to know who you're around and who's around you. So.
Still one of them wild moments.
I can tell.
especially when you sit back and you realize that at the same time of learning what was done and why it was done, that you realize that you played a part in moving it forward. Whether knowingly or willingly, you get what I'm saying, that we played a part in moving their narrative forward for them. That they got it implemented in it so well that they don't even have to move a muscle. We doing it all.
You're right. David Corey says, do y'all remember Spook, the ghost, Casper's cousin? Wow.
That they go in so early for the children. That's what's like just really troubling the most to me right now. They're so impressionable. And they don't deserve that. Like, children deserve the right to be children. If anybody deserves the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a child does. How do you... I don't even want to try to comprehend how somebody does put something like this in place or perpetuates it, because I don't ever want to be able to make sense out of nonsense. That means something's wrong with my brain. So,
and you can see the effects. You can see the effects because it was done to us. Make no mistake about it. We remember these cartoons and these jingles. It was done to us. And true indeed, a lot of us are shaking it off. But that's the part that should allow us to know that it's real. That's the part that should strike home with everyone, to know the damages of these programs.
Right.
Look at the mental states that we was at in our lives before we got to this moment here. The subliminal suggestive thoughts of things that we took on as it was cool being down, because the images and suggestions that was constantly bombarded on us. And we are, like we always say, now that we know, what's the solution? And TMA's laid out a real good one. We take advantage of these nonprofit mechanisms. Stop complaining about it. We take advantage of it. What is it to start linking up, getting together, and take this serious? We have educators amongst our community. We have planners amongst our communities. So let's put it in motion. Another generation and another generation and another generation is going to fall a victim to the program. And let's not be naive, because we see it's working. How many of us are still lost because of that program? We have to pay attention again to our environment, our surroundings, the things that we partake in our daily lives. Because the majority of the time, those are the things that are keeping us down. Free made a very good statement that we should apply. Who told us this? Who? The majority of things that we were pointed to as entertainment and fun turns out to be the things that tears down the most. But who gave it to us? And why? Same people that allow, that push this stuff on us, don't even allow it to be played in their households.
Right. Which should tell you something. Come on, we have to be better stewards of our own homes. We're talking about governance. What about the governance of your own household? Let's check for that. Let's use this time, this break we have for the next couple of days, to do some true soul searching. to really do some self-assessment. If we're going to build from a proper foundation, we have to do it correctly. So a lot of these mindsets that even we've developed, because either we're trying to protect ourselves or just going through life and having different experiences, it's time to look at things through fresh eyes and always use your logic. Don't ever throw your logic out. Don't go with some warm and fuzzy feeling. Like, the warm and fuzzy feeling is not going, you probably feel warm and fuzzy if somebody stabs you until you feel cold when you bleed out. So the warm and fuzzy, that's not the ticket. All first things are first, all second things follow. So let's get our foundation right. Let's get our minds right. And let's start really building something that will last for all eternity. Where this conversation we're having now will never have to happen again. It'll just be a thought, something that was apropos for the time back in 2019, but something that our future generations like can barely fathom. Like, how could that have ever happened? And then they have that sense of never on my watch will it ever happen again.
It's not hard too. It's really not, relatives. We make it harder than what it really is. To show you how simple this is and why we are the blame for this right now, see how we here live streaming, see how we on these communications and back chats and video calls. This same technology is an online school. We just don't apply it that way. This same technology that we link up with every rising, it's the same technology and mechanism that you need for online school. It's around us. The tools are here. That's not the issue. The issue is, are we ready to stand up and grab these tools and put them to work? Regardless if we see the fruits of our labor, but knowing our generations moving forward will. Are we going to leave them a bag of excuses? How can we know that the situation is bad and go into the next rising without attempting to change one thing to make it better for the next day? Just one thing. If we can try to make the further day better than the day before, put it to work. We put it to work when we want to entertain, when we want to show the worst of us. We use it then. We'll go out and record every foolish thing that we see across this landmass. But then turn around and complain that all we see is negative images. For real? And not only complain about it, go hit the like button on the negative images. And wonder why situations don't change.
Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? Your actions really tell your truth better than your words ever can say. So again, self-assessment is really important. I like what Bones said, the whole thing about being able to use what we have as a tool. What's the difference between a screwdriver could be a weapon or a tool, depending on whose hand it's in and what the intent is for it. We have to know how to deconstruct anything superfluous that they've tried to attach to us that doesn't belong. Shake that off of you. Get that off of you. That's not you. Stop it. And then build yourself from there. But do it on your terms. Only you can be you. No one else can be you. Only you. And there's a void. The American Indian has a voided place there that's just calling out to be remembered, for you to remember yourself. We all have a purpose. So let's figure this out On purpose and with a purpose.
Here's what I'm going to say. This is something that my father taught me a long time ago. You're responsible for everything that goes on around you. Whether you choose to accept responsibility or not, responsibility will always be yours. So how about we do this? Put down the popcorn. Pick up a mirror. Look at what role you've played in the apathy and the non-movement, not only in your household, but in your community. What have you done to help your community? And if you can't answer that question, that's a good start. What will you do to help your community? How many people around you that look like you know that they are American Indians? Know that they are not slaves? How many people in your community are even aware of the power that they have to change? If you haven't even done that in your own community, then you're just as guilty as these individuals on YouTube that do a lot of talking and don't do anything. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of the proverbial you. But at the end of the day, we all need to go from voyeurs to activists. Meaning, get out and do something. Only you know what works best in your neighborhood. Only you know what your neighborhood needs. I don't know what your neighborhood needs. I don't live in your neighborhood. But I know what my neighborhood needs. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm helping people to do in the neighborhood. Who are you associated with? The person to the left and to the right of you. What do you know about them? What are their affiliations? What private organization do they belong to? What causes are they supporting that you don't even know about, that you're affiliated with just by being associated with them? Who's vouching for them? Who's vouching for you? Yeah, I know it sounds like a lot of responsibility, but anything worth having is going to take a lot of responsibility. And if you're not willing to take that responsibility, and you're not willing to do something, and you're not willing to secure something for your next 7 generations, then accept the consequences of your inactions. But stop complaining. Because it's very hard to complain and work at the same time. It's very hard to create a solution and complain about the problem at the same time. So put the popcorn down, pick up the mirror, find out who you are, and then you'll be able to begin to know where to start. That's my 2 cents. Antonio says, I'm going to go on a tablet slapping campaign, slapping all the tablets out of kids' hands. you might want to be careful with that. Them tablets aren't cheap. Parents might call a popo on you, Antonio, so put your head on a swivel. Oak Cliff says, Big Chief's tablet. So we're coming up on a 10:30 hour, or half an hour. So this is probably a good point for us to leave a good salutations so we can reflect and move forward. Is there anything that anybody want to say before we move forward?
I just need to decompress.
Well, before you start your decompression, go ahead and give these good people salutations so we can send them out on a positive note for you.
Oh, I must say again, this will be a trifecta. Racism is a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people. A small minority of people. Don't be an extension of that small minority of people by carrying out their agenda, even unwittingly. The best way to not be a part of that system and not be a part of that maintenance is to know who you are. Be tribal. Do your genealogy. Connect back to your roots. There's a reason why your identity has been stripped away from you. There's a reason why your image has been tarnished. What happens when you stand up fully aware in your power and in your authority in today's day and time, when your voice is heard loud and clear, unobstructed? Can you imagine what one person can do, let alone an entire community of people? This is truly our time. We first have to find our truth. So again, like I said, take this time over the weekend, do some soul searching. Let's clean up our own houses. Let's tighten up wherever we can. Nobody's above board. Nobody. Like, we all have things we can tighten up on. So let's be the best version of us that we can be. And I'm so very proud of all of you. I adore working with each and every one of you in the capacities that I do. And I'm looking forward to additional builds, further momentum. We have no limit. I would never say the sky's the limit. We as a collective unit, we have no limit. So let's just keep rising. Much love, stay in bliss. Everyone be safe.
Appreciate that, Free. Not Copper. I'm gonna let Copper go next after No Sellout. Because No Sellout always accuses me of making him go after somebody that says something profound. But either way, you gonna get stuck, bro. So.
Oh yeah, I know. So. Just back into a corner with A2. It's cool. Peace to the chat.
Be like that.
I mean, it's a good corner to be in. You know, it's like you got your coach behind you. Your coach is your boxing coach behind you. Let me not go there. Mic check. Peace to everybody in the chat.
You stupid, you know that, right?
Links is in the.
If I ain't never tell you that before, I'm telling you that.
In a good way, right? Okay, all right.
100 all day.
Links is in the chat, y'all. Appreciate everybody for coming out all week. This week, y'all had it popping in the chat. I appreciate it. We appreciate it, actually. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or corrections, please email us, Pamela Hall. Email us again. We would appreciate it. So we can actually see that email. But yeah, thank y'all. Peace, y'all.
All right. Copper, Indio, what you got for us, bro?
All right. Peace to everybody that's tuned in the chat and beyond. Today's bill was important, and I wasn't as vocal as I wanted to be because of meetings and stuff going on in the background. But this is an integral part of not only how our relatives and ancestors got into this place, geopolitically and culturally, but this is the same thing that when we look around us, we're seeing our children go through. And that's why, as a father, it's important to me. As a member of this community, it's important, I think, to all of us, because this is something we're seeing. This is something that's still relevant with us today. All of the stuff we've been covering through Reconstruction all this week has led up to this, the mode by which we are being perpetuated in our misclassification. And it is time for it to stop. The fact that we are all here listening to these kinds of programs in this community is evidence that it is time for this to stop. And I mentioned it before, we are running out of time, because every day that passes, more and more of our ancestors, more and more of our relatives pass on. And with them, they take knowledge, they take memories, they take experience that tie us to who we really are. The people who have perpetuated these nursery rhymes, these little means of indoctrinating people, these mnemonic devices that they use to make us remember their history and their outlook. All of these things are designed to be perpetuated long enough for us to forget, to eternally bury who we are and never find it again. This is the reason why time is of the essence for us. Because once this history is gone and severed from us, you think it's hard to find your people now. You think it's hard to find your identity and claim it now. Imagine what it's going to be like in 20 years when we've gone full on and large parts of our population have either died off or moved to other parts of the world, having disdain for their own home country. This is not a game. This is serious. And this ties into how we got here and where we are going if we are not careful. So I hate to be sober about it, but I want to leave you all with on a good note. Now that we know that this is going on, we understand how we've been made a fool of, how we've been talked about and laughed at behind our back. Now we can stop it. Now we can begin to do what the people who, as some have termed it, dominate the society, have been able to do with their children and raising them, telling them what really went on, and providing an infrastructure for them to be successful. We can do that now. We don't need to give them the mnemonic devices that our children were given. And hopefully at some point we can leave them something that they can leave for their children. And we can begin to rebuild our culture, our languages, our society, and so forth. So let us look at this not as a means of making us to be inferior or to dog us out, but to give us the resolve to keep up what we're doing and push forward. I yield the mic.
Thanks, Copper. Really appreciate that. I think I done said enough for today. Attack this assembly is here to help. That's our mission. Pinpoint blank in a discussion. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to the chat. The best chat ever. Thank you to the new subscribers. Thank you to the bulk of the listeners who were just listening, taking all this information in, and then going out and doing something in your communities. We appreciate all you do. Appreciate the panel. That'll make my job so much easier. With that, I relinquish the mic and hand it over to Bones H. McCoy to give us the salutations and take us on out of here. I'm done.
All right. Peace, peace, peace. Peace to the channel. Appreciate everything that everyone brings to the show. Peace to the chat. Without y'all, this would definitely not be possible. And like we do as we go through this information together, it's not to sit here and feel sad, feel beat up on, not even to get angry and want to tear something up and point fingers. It's to find out our true story. Not to write books, not to brag, so we can get ourselves on that right path to where we need to be going. Let's start using these mechanisms to start making that change. Let's stop waiting on someone to come do it for us. Let's be the change that we need. Over this weekend, if you haven't, get the chance, check out the forum. There's a list of USDA programs that's there. The programs are there designed to help you, but you won't know what you qualify for until you apply your time to it. You never know. A lot of the situations and things that you're going through, the answer can be right in front of your nose. Sometimes we got to be willing to pump the brakes, slow down, pay attention to what's really going on around us, to apply our time and ourselves wisely. Let's take this weekend to reflect on what we have done, what we are doing, and what we will do. Let's take this time to make sure what we leave for our children stands the test of time, and what we go through today shall never happen again. And on that note, it's always fun when we get to kick it with the relatives. No place we'd rather be. Like I said again, having the greatest time of my life with the relatives right now. Until the next Rising show. Everybody have a very, very blissful day. And peace.
Peace, love, and light.
Peace and thank you, everybody.
Peace, y'all.